Galen, I did my doctorate in brain science thinking I could learn about consciousness, and I did a lot of work about the brain and enjoyed it very much. And I don't know if I got any closer to consciousness, but what has disturbed me in thinking about it is many philosophers who I really respect are now telling me that consciousness is an illusion, we should eliminate it, it's an artifact of different brain systems. So I like to start fundamentally. What is consciousness? Is it an illusion?
When you say they want to eliminate it, you don't mean it exists, but they want to get rid of it. You mean that it doesn't really exist at all. I think, is that right?
Yes.
No, it's not an illusion, and it's actually provably not an illusion. Dennett is one of the foremost people who's argued that it's an illusion. He famously says something like, perhaps I should introduce this word phenomenology. A lot of people use the word phenomenology to mean consciousness, to mean what it's like, the experience of you have from day to day, which is visual, oral, and so on. So he says there seems to be phenomenology, and he gives us examples, the golden sunlight streaming through the window and hearing the violins of Vivaldi. These are his own examples. He says there seems to be this stuff, there seems to be phenomenology. But it does not follow, he has a lot of italics here, it does not follow from this seemingly obvious fact that there really is phenomenology. That's his position. So he's claiming that it could be an illusion, and in fact he's going further and he's saying that it is an illusion. But I think this is provably false, and here's the problem. If there seems to be experience of violins and golden sunlight, that just is there being experience of golden sunlight and violins. If this is a place where you can't open up the is-seems gap. So for any object, I can say, look, it seems to me that I'm sitting in front of you, but I might be dreaming, you might not really be there. But if you try to say, it seems to me that I'm seeing someone who looks just like you, or it seems to me that I'm in front of a red wall, but the seeming, even the seeming is an illusion. So that would be saying it seems to seem. But what would that be like? That would be the same as it seeming. So you
can never get rid of it.
You cannot get away from the seeming, and the seeming just is what most people mean by consciousness.
So you're saying that there's a difference. If I see a visual illusion that turns from a rabbit into an old woman or something like that is not the same thing as the illusion of consciousness, because the consciousness itself, if you think it's an illusion, that process of thinking it's an illusion is the reality.
Yeah, it's. I don't know whether I would even want to talk about thinking, because that might sound a bit cognitive, but he is saying, well, just to go back again, it could seem to you that you're having vivid experience of red, but you're not really. But if it seems to you that you're having vivid red, you already really are. I don't see, this seems to be a conclusive objection, and the only thing that, I can't really fully understand how they think they can deny it, and my best guess is that they think that it's incompatible with physics, so it must be an illusion. Yeah. But they haven't actually got an argument.
Yeah. The claim is that there are different brain systems that are competing together, that have no relationship together except that we bring an artificial unity, and when they kind of come together, we're focusing on different things, a visual field or an auditory field, and that's the consciousness that we feel, is these independent brain systems that compete together for our attention, because we're very, of all the things that we do, we are in fact conscious of such a small percentage that these are competing with each other. But it leaves out the phenomenology, the experience.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind what story they tell about how it's produced in the brain. I mean, I know that it's extremely complicated. What we know is that the end product is there. So whatever the true story, the true neurophysiological story about how it's caused to arise, all I'm interested in is the fact that we know it's there. And there isn't going to be an argument from saying, look, it arises in this incredibly complicated way, integrating independent systems, therefore it's not really real. There's just no argument there. We know that it's real.
So how would you then classify consciousness? What are the characteristics of it if we just try to characterize this very unusual part of the physical world, our existence?
Well, I think the trouble with the word consciousness is that it's now itself a battleground, and it's used in every conceivable way.
Okay.
I've invented a verb, which is called to looking glass, a word. So a lot of people have looking glassed the word consciousness, where I define that as you use it in such a way that whatever you mean by it, it excludes what the word actually means. So I would say Dennett has looking glass consciousness. He says quite explicitly what he means by consciousness is just fame in the brain, that is accessibility to cognitive processes.
Right.
But
what is your definition?
Yeah, I mean,
consciousness?
I think I'll just tell you what I mean by it, and I do think this is what a lot of people mean by it. So, and we just don't need to get very complicated. We just stay with colors, sights, sounds, tastes, and smells, and bodily feelings, including pain. That's enough. It's all those things of which we say in this famous phrase that there is something it's like to have them, something it's like subjectively or qualitatively or experientially to feel them. I think there's actually a lot more to consciousness, but there is at least this. And the whole deep problem is already there with just colors, sights, and sounds. And all these.
The feel of it, as opposed to the reactions to it, because it's possible to react to those things and not have the internal feeling, the so-called philosophical zombie.
That's right. I mean, you can design machines now that there's an electronic nose that's kind of one of the best judges of which wine this is,
right.
Better than all the experts, but
right.
of course it doesn't have the feel, it doesn't have the subjective experience.
Even though it may smell and it may have a better...
Well, I wouldn't, whether you want to say it smells, I wouldn't. I would say the word smell implies the actual feeling. Mm-hmm. This is it's a discriminator, it can detect. Just like another machine, a light can tell you how many, the wavelength of light that's coming from somewhere. Mm-hmm. It doesn't see. Mm-hmm. It just, a number comes up on the screen. It says this is 587 nanometers.
Right, and that is a specific color that we would feel as opposed to the registration of a wavelength.
Yeah, that's right.
So as an overview, how important is consciousness for our understanding of what reality is all about?
Well, I'm inclined to go all the way. I'd say, the first thing to say, I think, is that consciousness is the most certainly known fact, the most certainly known natural fact. So, of course, we all believe in an external physical world, and many of us think that world involves fundamentally non-conscious, non-experiencing things. And I'm sure that's true. But if you ask me to prove it, it isn't actually formally provable. The old problem of skepticism about the external world simply isn't finally answerable. So that's how important it is. It's the only thing we know for certain to exist. But of course, we're sure that there are other things.
But as far as your view of reality, you are more sure that consciousness exists, certainly your consciousness, than anything else.
Sure, you could make that point. You could say that the skepticism I just introduced about is there an external world, strictly speaking, I can't even be sure that there are other consciousnesses.
Right.
But that's true. But the thing about skepticism is quite a lot of philosophers think that you have to try to refute it. And that seems to be a mistake. Funnily enough, it's giving it too much importance. The thing about skepticism, you just have to say, there it is. I cannot, strictly speaking, refute it. But I'm now just going to pass on. I'm not interested.
So in conclusion, how would you characterize the importance of consciousness in setting the agenda for us to understand what all reality is about?
Well, I mean, there is also a sense in which all our fundamental data is a matter of conscious experiences. All the readings of needles on dials, they're all ultimately they depend on us being conscious and registering them. So absolutely fundamental to science. Think about Carnap. Carnap wanted to construct the whole of science on the basis of blues and basic patches of sense data. So it's fundamentally important.